at Laravel validation, and a couple of ways that we can handle the messages that are passed through to the view. And we're going to look at a way that we can ensure that the data that gets input into the form isn't wiped out on post. Okay, so let's have a quick look at what we got here. We got a quick registration field, and I've popped it into Twitter Bootstrap to pop some basic styling on. I'm just going to fill out this form and show you what happens currently. I'll pop in a password, and you'll see I'm just dumping out the data here, just to show you what we've got. And we've got a Csrf token down here. Now, if you're not familiar with what that is, that basically stops cross-site request forgery. This token is unique based on the application key that you've given given Laravel in its config, and don't forget to do that using Artisan if you haven't already. And that uses the built-in Csrf filter, which you can find inside of your routes.php down here. If you don't provide a key on your form, then this won't work. So let's have a quick look at our form, and we're just opening up our form, and we're using Blade here, and we've got a couple of different types of fields. So we've got a text field, an email field, and a password field, and we're going to take advantage a bit more of the form later on when we pass back the messages. So at the moment you'll see that it is just the elements. In our controller, I've set it to RESTful, which means we can take advantage of get, post, put, and delete. Today we're only going to be using get and post. So if you're not familiar with REST, then don't worry. It's not too difficult. It's just a couple of methods we're using here. Our get index, we've got our title that we're setting, so we're already setting a layout. We're nesting in the content, which is our home.index, which is our form itself. So in our post index, you can see we're dumping out the inputs. Obviously this isn't what we want to do, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. And I'm going to open up a new array and attach it to the variable rules. So open up a new array. Now in the rules array, the key is the element we're going to be attaching it to, and the value in the rules themselves. So first of all, we have first underscore name, and that rule I just want to be required. Same with last name, just want that to be required. Now email, I want Laravel has a built-in rule to check and see if it is an actual email. So I'm going to go ahead and say put email in. Now I also want this to be a required field, and you might think that you have to put a different rule in for it, or you couldn't have multiple rules. That's not true at all. You can just pop in a pipe symbol, and then you can pop your second rule afterwards, and you can carry on. So say you wanted the min length to be 5, for example, you can go ahead and put that in here as well. Now password, again this needs to be required, but I do want the minimum length to be 5, and that's just for security reasons. You might want to make sure that they've got some uppercase characters or lowercase characters or whatever, and you can create a custom rule to do that. We're not going to go into those today. The confirmation, I want this to be the same as password. So if password is empty, it's going to say it needs to be required, and if the confirmation is not the same as password, then this won't go through at all. So now we've got our rules. How do we go ahead and associate those with the input? Now using the validator class, we could go ahead and do this. So all we need to do is say validation. I'm just attaching it to the validation variable just for ease of use. You can attach it to whatever you like, obviously. Validator make. Now the first parameter are your inputs. So you see we've already brought all of those in using input all. And the second is our rules. Okay, so now we need to check and see if that validation passes, and we can do that with validation if validation fails, and then we can do something here. For the moment I'm just going to return failed. Okay, so let's post our form without any data in, and we'll see what happens. So we failed the validation. So that's working perfectly as it is now. Now something we do need to do is redirect back to our form with our messages. Now our messages are just going to display some generic information for now, but I'll show you how to customize those in just a second. Okay, so we want to say, what do we want to do here? We want to return a redirect to wherever our form is, and mine happens to be on the root. And we're going to do it with errors. And we need to pass in our errors, so it's validation, and we can get our errors. They're just attached to a property, so we don't need our braces there. Okay, so let's fill in some information, and we'll see what happens now. Now we're not going to fill in the other fields. Now immediately you'll see a problem. It's wiped out our fields. Now obviously that's not ideal. If this was a longer form it would become frustrating to the user, so we need to fix that. And we can do that very easily. All we need to do is pass through another one, and this is with input. Now this time it's going to pass back the input that was popped in. And back over on our form, on the second variable on our inputs, if we do input old, and then just pass through the name of that particular input. So I'm just going to pop these in all of the fields that can accept it. Password fields can't accept a preset variable, so we can't put these on the password fields. You probably wouldn't want to do that for security reasons anyway. So last name and input old email, and we'll refresh, so we pop some in, and we'll just make sure that that works. Yep, so we posted the form, it's redirected us back. We're not seeing any error messages yet, but our input hasn't gone, which is a good sign. Now, you may think that we haven't attached any, if you're used to using redirect and passing through the with, you might notice that we haven't passed anything, attached a variable to this. Now, automatically Laravel will use the errors variable, so let's dump our errors and see what happens. So you see, we're actually not getting anything here. In our messages we've got nothing, and our format we've got nothing. So, how do we go about getting these out? Now, let's for example use our email one. I'm going to use blades if, and we're going to say end if, and we're going to say if errors has email, we can, let's just say echo out error with the email. So on ours there's not going to be an error. We pass that back through, there's an error with the email. Now that's very generic. We've got two rules on there, so we don't know if there's a problem with the email address or we're not filling out the field. So we're going to want to fill out the actual error itself. Now, because there could be multiple errors, we're going to need to for each all of the errors through. So we're going to do for each errors get email, and we're going to say as $email underscore error. Although in my case, I'm just going to do error for ease. And we're going to say at end for each, and we're going to echo out the error. So let's try again. The email field is required. Now this looks a bit pants. We can improve on that because Bootstrap has built-in alert styles. So in the second field, just pass through p class, and I'm going to say alert to error, and we're going to end that. Now inside here, just do a colon with message, and that is going to style the message inside of a p tag. So if I post that through again, the email field is required, so that's very obvious that something's gone wrong with this. Now what we could do even more to extend upon that is inside the if statement we could pop our field itself, and we can say pass in for the third parameter we can pass an array through, and we can say class equals error, and then we can do else echo out our fields as normal. Now obviously I haven't styled up the error class here, but if we inspect the element, then you'll be able to see it has a class of error on it. So we could style that up, and then if there was an issue with this, we could then clearly alert the users to which field had the issue. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and quickly do that for all of the other fields, and then we'll carry on from there. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that for all of our fields. So let's go ahead and try out and see if that validation works. So I'm just going to post it, and we should see an error on every single field, apart from the confirm password. And the only time we'll see that is, say I type password in and type something else in here. Then we'll say the confirm and password must match. Now that doesn't sound very good to me. I think we can improve upon that by using custom messages. Now back over on our controller, we could go ahead and pop through a third parameter on our validation. We can pop through a messages array. So I'm going to go ahead and say messages equals another array. Now there's two different ways of doing messages. If we wanted to do them specific to the actual confirmation or the actual rule, so if we say the rule is required, then we can say the attribute is required full, and if we pop that through, the first name is required full, the last name is required full, email and password is required. Now I think it's nicer to pop them specific to the actual element themselves. I haven't got an issue with the general, the first name is required, the last name is required. My main issue is with the confirm one. So if we say confirm, and then use an underscore to specify which rule, same, and then just say the confirmation and password did not match. And this time, if we pop in two different passwords, you'll see the confirmation and password did not match, and that's much more natural. Obviously, it hasn't been generated by a robot, and that's basically it. So if you need a little bit more information, or you want to take a look at some more different validation, you can use unique to match it to a particular column in a table, for example. Then just head over to the Laravel docs. You can see all the different types of validation rules here. Same and different is very, very good. Again, we've touched on same. Unique and existence in a database is extremely powerful and allows you to quickly relay back that particular username is gone, for example. Okay, so that was a quick look at validation in Laravel.